swing and a drive. Right field and deep. Back goes Aquino. It's got a chance. Gone. Get out the tape measure. Long gone.
Fly the W!
Cubs fans, it's time to fly the W with Dustin Rhodes and Paul Crawley-Jean.
You are listening to the Fly the W podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network. Don't forget to listen, download, subscribe, and most importantly, review our podcast. Follow on the all socials. You can follow me at Crawley's Cubs on X, Blue Sky, TikTok, and Crawley's Cubs on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at Threads. You can email us at crawleysclubhouse@gmail.com. And joining me today, we have a special guest. He is your play-by-play broadcaster for your Myrtle Beach Pelicans, Luke Moehle. How you doing, Luke?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Excited to be part of the Cubs family. You know, it started very abruptly for me, coming into Myrtle Beach kind of last minute. It was end of February, early March that we officially got here, and then got to experience a full season. It was an eventful one and feel kind of ingrained in the Cubs family now.
Yeah, tell our listeners, what were you doing before you were calling games for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans?
Yeah, so the year prior to this past season, I was in Frisco, which is actually the sister club of the Pelicans, same ownership group, Chuck Greenberg being that owner. So I was with the Frisco Rough Riders, which is the AA affiliate of the Texas Rangers. So did that. Year before that, I was at the big league level doing media relations stuff with the Kansas City Royals, which is my hometown. So Kansas City born and raised, and then headed right down the road, down I-70 to University of Missouri in Columbia. Got my degree there, played a little bit of baseball. We're going to put air quotations in play. I was on the roster for about a year and a half, and then hung it up and focused on the journalism route, and that's how we found ourselves here in Myrtle Beach.
Kansas City, man. We went to Kauffman Stadium 2 summers ago, I want to say. Just had an absolute blast, and that barbecue is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, barbecue's the bomb.
Out of this world. So you get to come into Myrtle Beach, and I think, like you talked about, you came kind of right before the season, and it was, I would say, like a pretty wild season. A lot of like ups, a lot of downs, and a lot of interesting things going on. And when the Pelicans started this year, right? You had a lot of guys that were coming back, and you had a couple top 30 prospects, some new draft picks, and Myrtle Beach and Low A is kind of interesting because guys come in after they're drafted and all this stuff. But it was kind of like a weird start for the team. It didn't come out of the gate very strong.
Yeah, the very first weekend on the road in Charleston, took all 3 games. And you got a feeling walking away from that, like, are we that good or were they that bad? And you just didn't really know. And then we ran into a buzzsaw in what was the Carolina Mudcats with all of the Brewers' top prospects. And they did some good work here in Myrtle for the first homestand. And, it was just finding that balance. You saw some guys shine individually, but they were just losing close games. I think at one point they were 5-13 in one-run games. And it was about how can they reset mentally and figure out how to turn those close losses into wins. And that's exactly what they did. Really the turning point was middle of June. They started figuring out how to win, and have to tip the cap to Giovanni Cuevas, a first-year manager for us this year. And he did a fantastic job, not letting the guys – people get too caught up in the records. You want to see wins, but this is about development for these guys. How do they get to the next level? And once they get passed off to the next level, how do they climb from there? Ultimately, the goal being trying to play at Wrigley Field. So – it was fun to watch the ascent of some of these guys, and the guys that kind of struggled early on found their footing and they played good baseball down the stretch. The guys that really exceeded early kept doing that, and they found themselves at higher levels. So I think it was 16 players in total. I'd have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure it was 16 was the number that found their way to a higher level than here in Myrtle Beach after starting their season here.
Yeah, and when you look at the first half, they finished with a 25-39 record. But then all of a sudden, the second half, they're 43-21, and you guys get a playoff berth. I think you might be the lucky charm here, Luke.
I don't know about that. Like I mentioned, Giovanni Cuevas did a great job of kind of leading that turnaround. And you look at some of those top names like Angel Cepeda is a great example of it. A guy that you saw those early flashes that, he's going to be a solid player, but just the numbers weren't there. It's just he had one moment, and then it's almost like one step back, striking out, whatever it might have been. And guys just put it all together. And once they started on a roll, there was no stopping them.
And you mentioned Cuevas, and when you talk about Giovanni Cuevas, he also, first year manager, you got some new guys on the staff, right? And so it kind of probably takes some time to blend that in. What did you notice from Cuevas as a manager for his first season?
I think he did a tremendous job of being a player type of manager, but that also had that switch to flip it on and say, guys, we're not doing what we need to do here, and holding people accountable. I think what's really special, especially here at such, the entry type levels for these guys, is having a manager that understands the playing side of things. And Giovanni was a player for 5+ years in this same system. So super special for them to get that contact. I think he has a super bright future as a manager ahead, and it'll be fun to watch his ascent as well. But just watching the development of these guys, it's so easy when you start losing early on to just put your head down, or if you're in a rut as a hitter or as a pitcher, you can't find the strike zone, whatever it might be. So easy to get so in your head that there's no coming back from it. And the only way to get there is just the season to end. And then we reset for next year. But they did a great job of doing that at a 3-day break during the All-Star break. So it was really fun to watch.
And Cuevas has a lot of experience working with young players, the ACL, with the Dominican Summer League, all that stuff. And being able to be bilingual, in today's game is a huge plus for a manager.
Yeah, it 100% is. I think our opening day roster, the most represented U.S. state was California. We had 5 guys from California, but we also had a representation from everywhere. Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela. We had a little bit of everything. We even had Colombia come in at the end of it. It was really cool to watch this group blend. They were a really tight group. There was no problems off the field. They got along together, and that's not always the case. People don't realize that, but everyone from different backgrounds, whether that's different ages, whether that's different cultural differences, it's hard to blend a team, and this coaching staff did a really good job of blending them together. They were a very tight-knit group from the beginning to the end, and it was never about one person. It was always about the guy next to them. How can I make my teammate look better? And when you do that, you're going to win ball games, and you're going to catch the attention of the higher ups, the brass in this system, or maybe somewhere else to help you get to that next level.
And not only do you have a new manager, not only, do you have some new guys on the coaching staff, but there's this cloud overhead as far as the future of the Pelicans, right? And that all got resolved right around the same time the Pelicans start to go on a run.
For sure. And I'm sure as players, they're not really thinking about that sort of thing. That's not their job to worry about it. It's about putting their head down and just playing baseball. But, there's some extra energy with that when fans come to the ballpark excited to celebrate that sort of thing. The buzz in the air is just more positive, and I think that helps guys. So I don't know if it helped them win any ball games, but I'm sure they were excited. Myrtle Beach is a premier spot in minor league baseball. There's a lot of places there in the middle of nowhere. And as players, when you can enjoy the off day at the beach, that's always a positive.
Oh, I've had some good times down at the Dirty Myrtle, and excited to see what happens with the stadium improvements. I went down there a couple of years ago and just had a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see. It feels like in so many different levels. I know South Bend is doing stuff. Knoxville Smokies just got a new stadium, so I'm glad that Myrtle Beach is kind of getting their due. One thing that was difficult, and we're talking about the ups and downs of the season, an icon of minor league baseball and someone who spent some time at Myrtle Beach, of course, was Buddy Bailey, former manager who passed away this year. And some of his players were still on the team, I'm sure, and it had to have been difficult. I know that you guys honored him the best that you could. What was it like around some of the players and stuff like that when the news broke that Buddy passed away?
Yeah, it was really, really a cool thing. It's a tough situation. And obviously, Buddy's a legend, not only in this system, in this city, but also in all of minor league baseball, a guy that has given his entire life to the sport, both here in the United States and across, the entire world. I mean, he made an impact everywhere on players. Just at the beginning of this year, a new manager, that was a talk about things. Just, hey, there's a new manager here. What is that like without Buddy? So when we had those conversations, I got to hear the stories of Buddy, and I never got to meet him. And it felt like I somehow knew him through all these cool stories that have been told. In terms of his passing, it was really quick. It was sudden. We didn't know that, anything was going on. So for that situation, I think, coaches, players, front office, everybody, the community got together. And it was really cool to be able to honor him. And I think it's special that he'll be remembered here in Myrtle Beach, in the Cubs system, and across minor league baseball to the end of time.
Yeah, and I got my own little honoring of Buddy Bailey right here. Look at this bobblehead. This is one of the all-time.
Oh yeah,
things. It is a bubble
the win counter. There you go.
With the win counter for Buddy Bailey, winningest manager in minor league history. So, rest in peace, Buddy. But when you look at that second half run, going 43-21. And getting back to the playoffs, how exciting was it for you to be able to call some playoff baseball?
It was awesome. I had the luxury of doing the same last year in Frisco, but it was a different kind of scenario. We were really good in the first half and solid in the second half, but that first half champion, that you're going to be there. So you have tons of time to prepare. This was, in quotations, down to the wire, but at the same time, it wasn't, because of how dominant they were. You could see from 3 or 4 weeks out that there's a pretty high likelihood it's going to take something crazy to miss the playoffs, but it was a ton of fun. And, this being my first year in the Cubs system, blown away by how much Cubs fans care about minor league players individually, the teams, the performances. What was really cool is down the stretch, we started to see a lot of fan accounts in our mentions and things that had, different Pelicans players as their profile picture. We saw some Kane Kepleys, we saw some Giovanni Cuevas. So it was really cool to see, not only the Cubs system, this community, but everyone involved really get excited for him. And obviously it didn't end up the way that they wanted it to, but it was a ton of fun. And, even those playoff losses to Columbia, they were close games. It was pitcher duels, and it was a lot of fun. Each pitch had extra meaning, and that's what baseball is all about. You watch playoff baseball at any level, and it just means a little bit more. And you learn a lot about guys when you see them in those high pressure scenarios.
Yeah, and it was I think the final loss of the season was a 2-1 game. I mean, you can't get any closer. Yeah. It was just a really kind of fun thing. Now, I had our good friend Rich Biesterfeld. You talk about a guy that loves the minors, and he's always out at Myrtle Beach and all the other minor league parks. And he just got to cover the Arizona Fall Star game, and he got to see a couple of your guys out there, guys that maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what you saw in Myrtle Beach. Tell us a little bit about what you saw from Owen Ayers this offseason. You could talk about a lot of different guys in this group, Luis Martinez Gomez, JP Wheat, all these different names. But Owen Ayers is the headliner. And I'm not surprised one bit that he's putting on a show. He was having a fantastic season. And you look at the numbers, and that does not do it justice whatsoever. If you follow baseball here in the beach, it's a tough park to hit in because they're right next to the ocean. That air is dense. The ball doesn't fly in Myrtle Beach at Pelicans Ballpark. So bump up the offensive numbers a little bit, and you can kind of see what Owen Ayers did. But, I mean, he's as versatile as they come. Owen is one of my favorite players that I've ever covered in minor league baseball, just because his versatility. He's a switch hitter. He's a catcher. He hits for power. He can hit for average. He can play a little bit of first base if you need it. He's a former outfielder. It's gap-to-gap approach. Like, the list goes on and on and on the reasons why you should love Owen Ayers as a prospect. And the fact that he's not a top 30 guy in this system blows me away, which that's a tip of the cap maybe to the depth of this organization. But Owen Ayers needs to be in a top 30 list somewhere because he is fantastic and an 80-grade human being on top of that. Owen was always willing to chat pregame, whether that's an interview, whether that was just inside on the opposing starting pitcher. He is going to be
a really good player.
Oh yeah, it like you said, when you talk about it, especially as a catcher, I mean, I'm just like, oh man, that would just be so amazing to sit there and to see, what he can do and what's going to happen in his future. Cohen Moreno's another guy that's out in the Arizona Fall League. What should fans kind of look at when they're kind of watching him?
I didn't get to see him as much, but followed along with things. And I think another guy that's just really exciting, with me not being able to see him, can't speak to the super in-depth details, but from everything that I've heard, another stand-up person, another super competitor. You look at guys that are now at the big league level. Actually, earlier today was on another podcast, and we were talking about the Rookie of the Year voting in the NL and how that sorted up with Cade not winning that. It's another mentality of, okay, chip on the shoulder. You give this guy a reason to fight harder, he's going to take it a full mile. Give him an inch, and he's going to take a mile of it. So another fierce competitor that I think can climb really quickly, and that's something that I don't know if you can say that you haven't seen in the past because I haven't been around, but at least for me, coming into the organization, you see so many of those personalities of guys that they want to get to that next level, but it's not just about the level. It's about how can I be the best version of myself? And that's rare to find throughout organizations from top to bottom.
Now, you talked about the top 30. You did have 2 top 30 prospects start off the season with you, Cole Mathis and Angel Cepeda. And
yeah, Cole and Angel both are awesome. And I'll let you kind of finish, but with them, such interesting developments this year. And obviously with Cole being injured for part of the year, that was a little bit of a setback, but both guys with huge high upsides.
Yeah, and that's just watching it, very curious to see how that all plays out. Now, I got a good kick out of there is a couple of different players that to me were kind of interesting to take a look at, but I love it whenever that there is a guy who gets to sign with his hometown team. And you got to have, I believe there's a couple of guys that actually were part of that rooted for the Cubs when they were younger. Trying to think, my brain is firing, but you also have Mason McGuire on there, who is Mark's son. And I got to see Mark at spring training a couple of years back, and it's fun. And I didn't know if he had a chance to kind of come by the ballpark at all.
I did not see him at all. I was hoping that Mason would get fully healthy and be out here and ready to go. Didn't get to see him. It'll be interesting to see what goes on this year, if he'll be starting here and climbing up. But yeah, that was one of the first things that I saw when we saw the official roster. It was McGuire, and I know that name. I know Mason McGuire. I want to see where this goes. And so unfortunately didn't get to see Mark out of the ballpark. But hopefully he's able to get healthy, and then maybe we'll find a way to get Mark in the broadcast booth here in Myrtle Beach at some point.
all I can tell you is seeing Mark McGuire in a complete Cubs uniform was
Feels
a little bit
right?
shocking for me. It was a little bit weird, but Ethan Flanagan is a guy that was a Cubs fan growing up. So he's a guy that I'm rooting for, and a lefty as well, lefty pitcher. But I'm a sucker for the guy that just grew up a Cubs fan,
Yeah, for sure. We did a little feature story on Ethan during the year, and obviously pitched really, really well. He's another guy with high upside that has a super interesting story. But when we were doing this, I was like, do you have any pictures of you? And his little league team was the Cubs. He was a full-blown Cubs uniform, pinstripe pants. He had the whole 9 yards for their little league team. And it was really cool to watch that sort of thing and get to talk to him about, why the Cubs. He listed his 2 favorite players as Clayton Kershaw, which for good reason as a left-hander on the mound, and then obviously one of the greats in Anthony Rizzo, and so I got to talk to him a little bit about, that Rizzo homecoming, and then you saw the home run by Bally out there too. And just special stuff this year all around, and to be able to talk with this group of guys about it was really cool.
Yeah, and hopefully he'll be able to meet Anthony Rizzo if he comes to Cubs convention, right?
For sure. Hopefully we'll see some of the guys out there.
Yeah. Now, as far as it's concerned, are there any other players that you think our listeners should be have on their radar to be watching out for next season?
We touched on Owen Ayers. We talked about some of those top 30 guys. Second round draft pick Kane Kepley is one that's a complete player, and great bat to ball skills, super high IQ, covers a lot of ground in the outfield, plus on the base paths. Once he got on base, he was going to do something special. And so he was really fun to watch, one to pay attention to. Ty Salvazine, another young guy, grinder, comes from a family with 4 boys, all of which they start with T. And Ty, being the oldest one, was the first to the pro ranks. His brother, one of his younger brothers, was just drafted in the first round by the Braves this year. So that's a baseball family. And Ty is a hard worker. He's hard on himself, and he's got some growing to do as a young player, adjusting. But boy, it was special to have that 1-2 at the top of the card that could be interchangeable. It didn't matter if it was Salvazine or Kepley leading off, but that was a massive advantage for us. Down the stretch this year, once Kepley joined the club, I think Kane is a guy that could climb really, really quickly. On the pitching side, we talked a little bit about JP Wheat, electric fastball. He's got to stay healthy. But when he's healthy and in the strike zone, he is really, really good. So a little bit of one of those project type pitchers, but if they get it fine-tuned correctly, he could be extremely dominant. And then you look kind of down the stretch, Flanagan was really, really good as a lefty. And then I feel like I've got to be missing someone, but we had some really good starting pitching performances over the back end of the season. And there wasn't, you look at the numbers. We ended up with guys like Nazir Moehle. We ended up with, or he started the year with us as well. And then, you have a JP Wheat type. Then you have, I think we ended at one point with 5 or 6 top 30 prospects. And, when you have that number next to your name, that's when you have the recognizable name and people, get really excited. There were a lot of guys on this team with and without that number that just showed tons of promise. You saw them develop. And if you can take those steps, well, they're just like this. Another name that pops into your head because he left here early is Cameron Cisneros. Cameron Cisneros is a true hitter. Back spinning balls all over the yard. He's got plus power. And you look at a scouting report on him and it's not going to say anything about his defense. But he plays a solid first base. He went out there, minimal mistakes. He did what he was supposed to do. Now, is there room for growth, making, more range or whatever that might be for him? For sure. But that's what the minor leagues is all about, developing a little bit more, finding that edge. But you can go down list after list of guys, whether it's the bullpen, whether it was starting pitching, whether it was just defensive prowess for guys or at the plate. And it was crazy to look back at the first for second half numbers. Obviously the win totals we've talked about, but the individual stuff, guys going from hitting Jose Escobar. We didn't talk about him, but he hit 290 in the second half. So if you've got guys hitting 290 in the lineup every day and you're not talking about them, something's going right.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's going to be fun to see what happens in 2026 at Myrtle Beach. I encourage everyone to go down there. I had so much fun. I missed the slider pup. He's such a great little dog. And I would say right now, for those that are interested, Myrtle Beach is having an auction, a jersey auction. And the one thing I'll always say is that to me, Myrtle Beach always has the best unis. They got all sorts of cool alternates. I got the skull and bones, crossbones upstairs that I just love so much. But this jersey auction is going to be really kind of cool because of all the great players that you guys had coming through, right? And so whether it's PCA or whoever, it's fun that some of these are out there. So you could absolutely help people out there, and it's all for a good cause, I think. So if you go to myrtlebeachpelicans.com, that's where you can find those jerseys, and they're going to be going on for about another week till the 21st.
Yeah, ton of fun. The merch, they do a great job of keeping, the team store stock. The on-field stuff is obviously great. You see that every day, but the team store is one of the best I've seen in minor league baseball. So definitely come out this year. Should be a ton of fun, and hopefully win some more ball games. But even if they don't win ball games, you can watch some of the future Cubs, and you can grab yourself some cool looking merch. And you mentioned PCA, which I didn't get to be here with PCA, but hearing all the stories was awesome. And then obviously watching his ascent to the big leagues and what he's done with his career to this point. And there's so much more for him to go. It's super exciting. But that just you mentioning PCA reminded me, my favorite number this year is Owen Ayers had himself a 16-game hitting streak, and he got to 15 with an inside the park home run, which I think today, maybe earlier today, I saw the video of that the Pelicans put that out as one of the top 10 plays of the year. So he had an inside the park home run to get him to that point, which is kind of fitting considering PCA's speed. But he was just the fourth to reach that mark in the last decade for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. And the other ones are pretty special company. It was David Bodie, PCA, and James Triantos, which
there you go.
All three pretty good hitters. So if that's telling, that's good company to be in for Owen Ayers, who, got hurt at the end of the year and then now is the star of the fall league. So
100%. Luke, do me a favor. Obviously, you can follow the Myrtle Beach Pelicans on all their social media, but where can our listeners go to follow your content on social media?
Yeah, try to put some stuff out about the Pelicans, do a lot of collaborations on everything with the Pelican social media. So if you scroll through there, generally you can find something. But on X, it's just my name, just at Luke Moehle, spelled like right there on the screen, Moehle. Makes no sense, I know. And same thing for really everything. If you look it up, I don't have a common name with the last name there. So usually if you get the spelling right, you can find it. But yeah, I'm excited for this season to come around, hoping to be out at CubsCon and then make an appearance at spring training as well. So hopefully we'll see some fans around. I'm excited to take in, my first breath of Cubs spring training. I've been out to Arizona and done the spring training stuff in the past just as a fan, but very excited to visit Cubs spring training for the first time.
There is nothing like Sloan Park, and there's nothing like Cubs convention. And I can just tell you that you are going to have your first Malort shot when you come up here. So make sure you're ready, and I will be there to make sure to document your first Malort shot, Luke.
Perfect. I'll be there.
All right, buddy. Thanks for jumping on, and we'll talk to you more next season. All right.
All right. I appreciate you.
It's all over.